Welcome to the Entrepreneur Gene. I'm your host, Laurie Barkman. Each week, we'll hear from founders and CEOs to explore key decisions they've made for growth, value creation, and challenges along the way. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, offering entrepreneur advisory services from transition to transaction. Don't forget to hit subscribe, follow us for the latest episodes, and visit thebusinesstransitionsherpa.com for more exclusive content. Let's dive in. I am so excited to talk with my guest today. He's been on probably 500 plus shows, so you know that he's passionate about podcasting. And more than anything, I think my guest is passionate about creating relationships through different mediums. And that's really the exciting thing about the podcast medium. He's a serial entrepreneur focusing on enhancing B2B brands. He's the author of Marketing Automation Unleashed, and he's the host of his podcast, The Hardcore Marketing Show, which I've been a guest on and very, very excited about that. He's the founder and chief evangelist of Ringmaster, Conversational Marketing. Casey Cheshire, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so happy to be here.
It's a really cool dynamic because your team is helping me produce the show. So we'll kind of
Right.
give an upfront plug to that. And you also know the ethos of the show is about entrepreneurialism and what does it take to be an entrepreneur. So the very first question, Casey, as you know, right out of the gates is there an entrepreneurial gene and what does it mean to you?
I'm going to go a little crazy on this one. I had a sip of my Celsius just now, and I'm going to say no. I actually think it's a muscle, but I'll give it a genetic disposition. I feel like, there are some people that can run a little bit faster than other people, but given enough time, I feel like this is something that you can grow, and it needs practice. It needs, it needs work. It needs those boring, unelegant, you know, lack of praiseworthy times where you're just in the gym, just making it happen, entrepreneur style.
So it's a muscle to be exercised.
Yes.
I can understand that. I also appreciate a little bit of the nope, this is not something we can learn it. At the same time though, there's probably some people who are just not wired for this life. Maybe we can characterize the opposite side.
It's a good question. I think when I was trying to encapsulate entrepreneurship and what does it mean? I mean, that's a really fun and fancy word for basically a down, dirty, roll up the sleeves, chew on broken glass type of a vocation. But I think a lot of it comes down to risk. And I've seen this profiled in the Colby and in other areas where they say, a higher risk tolerance does predispose you to some success, hopefully, or at least, more than likely you're going to be an entrepreneur or you might find success in that role.
Yeah. I think some people describe entrepreneurism as trying to solve problems. We can be innovative and problem solvers and not be wired to be an entrepreneur. So I guess what I'm doing is I'm kind of having a little bit of a debate with you because
Yeah, let's do it.
yes, while I think we can learn how to be a better entrepreneur, you really can't teach that desire for ownership mentality or having the ownership mentality. So, for example, let's say we've got a risk taking gene, we're wired to take risks, but we just don't want to shoulder payroll. We don't want to shoulder the burden of managing and running a business and having that ownership burden on our shoulders. That is, can we learn how to do it? Yes. But do we want to do it? And not everybody is wired for that.
True. It's almost like what's the priority? Is the priority, but again, I'll go back to safety and security and stability, or is it worth risking all of those things in order to get some modicum of freedom? And I think for me, it's definitely not the money. It's the freedom. And if the money wants to follow suit and hang out with us at the same time, I'm down for that. But it's the freedom to decide what problem to attack, or what to focus on. And ideally, you're focusing on your passions.
Yeah, freedom comes up a lot for these conversations, which I've really enjoyed with different entrepreneurs. That why did they start the business? Why do they keep doing it? And freedom is one of those really keywords. So,
I feel like you need a bingo card, right? You need the
oh yeah,
entrepreneur bingo card. Everyone listening, they go, "Oh, Casey said freedom. I get freedom and I get risk."
Or, we make this into a happy hour show and it becomes a drinking game. I
Can we
don't
do
know.
that? I'll come
Maybe we
back
do
for
that.
that.
I like that. The Entrepreneur Gene bingo card, Entrepreneur Gene drinking game. I like it.
Companion edition.
Going back to the notion that we can learn different skills, if you were going to teach entrepreneurship to someone, how would you do that? What would you teach?
Yeah, and I think back to all my experiences, when I was building up this muscle, it was the little workouts that did it, and a lot of times it was seeing a problem. Usually it's my own problem, and then just deciding there has to be a better way. So if I was gonna teach that, I think to your point, some of that ties into risk and freedom, and is the person gonna take the leap? But some of that, is it problem solving, or is it might be taking a step back and almost like macro viewing it, which is I think why a lot of marketers tend to be innovative like this, because we're not in that one little silo, that one little department. We just take a step back and look at the whole thing. We say, hey, there's something broken over here in this area. Let's fix it. So, I might teach some kind of, I don't know if I'd go as far as say macroeconomics, but some kind of macro thinking, or maybe even just a philosophy class, the philosophy of business. And whatever the opposite of nihilism is, I'd probably teach that.
Why don't you explain that a little bit more? What's nihilism?
The idea of just nothing matters, so why even do it and why care? Because I don't think that's, it's the opposite. It's like, oh, I do care, and whether it's myself, I don't want to do this work. I remember one particular experience. It's kind of funny. I was a young marketing coordinator tasked with doing kind of like the TPS report from Office Space. It was this giant report. It was actually called the FLS report. So it also had the acronym, and it took something like, I'm going to exaggerate, but 4 hours. Lauren could verify this. 4 hours of just manipulating Excel, and I'm just like, I don't want to do that. But that was part of my assignment. So I just, and I don't want to call it laziness. It was almost like that desire for efficiency, where if you see something, you're like, this can't be the most efficient way to go about it. And no, I don't want to spend 4 hours doing this, even if I'm listening to music. And so I learned macros in Excel. And guess what? They actually turned it into like an 10-minute exercise. Boop, boop, boop. It did all the things, and it was like flying around the screen, and macros are just automations for Excel. And I was able to just learn that and train that in order to, make efficiency for myself and also for the company.
I think that's pretty cool. As you were talking, I was thinking about we learn things so that we're right, right? We're learning the business of business. We're learning finance. We're learning accounting. We're learning marketing, and we as entrepreneurs want to be right because it's expensive to be wrong. But it also hurts the ego to be wrong. So what if and we're teaching entrepreneurship, we're teaching us how to be right, but we
Mm,
also spend time understanding it's okay to be wrong. Because if it's ego that's in the way of moving off of a bad decision, that is going to be probably pretty costly, painful in a lot of ways, emotionally, right? Some
yeah,
people just don't want to be wrong and they
yeah.
don't wanna move off of a bad decision, whereas in organizations that I've been a part of, I've either led the teams or I've been a part of teams where the mentality is test and learn. It's okay to be wrong, right? And in
Yes.
a lot of entrepreneurship curriculum, we learn about take small bets, right? Don't bet
Mhm.
the house, don't bet the farm. But being wrong can be okay, can't it?
Totally. As you were saying that, it was funny. I couldn't help but smile when you were talking about people that always have to be right. I was gonna be like, well, no, no, I don't. I was gonna like disagree with you. Um, and no wonder I found myself into marketing, is because it's that testing ethos of your idea, my idea. I don't really care as long as one of our ideas works. And then if you want credit, great. I don't really care. It's just more about moving everything forward.
Yeah. You're running a business, you're running Ringmaster,
Yes.
and you've got many challenges, as many entrepreneurs do. Which ones are keeping you up at night?
Yeah. You and I think you laugh at this. I think we've chatted about this in the past too. The idea of niching down, if that's even a word you can make into an
You're
ing.
making it into a verb, yeah.
Yeah, niche. I looked it up the other day. Apparently, in the U.S., we say niche, and the whole world says niche like soccer, in football. Um, but yeah, just the idea, like, so we create podcasts and we create connection. We connect companies with their buyers, their dream buyers. The challenge is who doesn't want to connect with their, like, everyone should connect. Literally everyone should have a podcast. And my real challenge is, and I know it's important from marketing and business perspective. Nope, you need to focus, claim some industries, and there are some industries that work well. Hello, SaaS, I see you. Professional services, space industry, all these different ones works really well. But everyone does need a podcast. So I do have a hard time saying no to customers outside that realm or even eliminating some of the targeting. And I know it makes for a better, I logically know that it makes good all around, but just emotionally, I want everyone to have a pod.
That is so relatable. I can relate to that from
Mhm.
my own business. I can relate because of my clients that I work with. Niching down, we're gonna call Webster's Dictionary and tell them that should be
We're
a
going
verb.
niche on this one? Okay, I'm down.
Niching down.
We're going
Um,
international.
it is challenging, and the benefits can be there. And I think in the environment we're all in, where we're saying, "Hey, am I right? Am I wrong? How can we be better?" Maybe there's a way to test and learn on that as opposed to
Yeah,
betting the farm. And look, let's turn this into a little coaching call, right? Maybe that's the approach is, hey, we're gonna try that. And if we're seeing the return, then it'll feel less scary. We'll hearken the wonderful book by John Warlow, Built to Sell, and he had a story, kind of a made up story about a marketing firm that ended up niching down
mm,
on logos. So they stopped doing this, they stopped doing that, and they focused on logos. And they
yeah,
became the best logo development for XYZ companies.
wow,
And that was the story, was largely built around what do we say no to? It's really, really hard. So
right,
yeah, and in this encouragement of teaching entrepreneurship, thinking about risk, how do we do smart risk? Right. I'm not a big
yeah.
fan. I don't go to Vegas and just spend all my money on gambling. I'd rather go shopping. It's more certain. But there's risks we can take, right? Smart risks.
It's interesting, built to sell. I don't know how stubborn I am, but how many times do I need to hear someone say that name of that book before I actually read it? The last time someone said that name that book in particular to me, I went and bought it on Audible. So it's literally on my phone right now. So hearing you say that, okay, okay. Next time I'm going on a walk, get a run in, I'm gonna hit play on that thing, so that I can go, yeah, that's a great book. But that's a
Yeah, I mean, John Warlow, I would, he's a contact of mine, a colleague. I'd love to call him a friend if I can say friend. And he's been
nice.
on my sister show, Succession Stories. So to give John a plug for that episode, if people want to find it, but his show is great too. I'm a value builder advisor. I'm a big proponent of what they teach, and so he's written 3 books. So we'll give kind of John's series a plug, and to our listeners, if you want to check it out, obviously encourage you to do that. And yeah, Casey, I think it's a good read. It'll be a good listen. Um, and so, as we think about the challenges that you're facing, the niching down challenge, what advice would you offer to other entrepreneurs besides let's open our mind?
You know what's interesting? The smart risk you brought up, that might even be a cool name for even the name of this episode. Because when I think about it, um, I am all about smart risk. I love skydiving and I hate roller coasters, right? And you definitely won't catch me scuba diving. And people are like, "What? Skydiving? That sounds so dangerous." But you know what? If you look up the statistics, it's actually the safest extreme sport. It's safer than even private piloting. It's safer than, well, obviously hang gliding, but it's safer than scuba diving. And when I explain it to people, there are backups, right? You have a parachute. Well, actually, you have you don't jump with one, you jump with two. And they're like, well, what happens if you get knocked out? Well, guess what? There's a thing in there that'll automatically deploy your chute if you're still falling terminal velocity and you pass a certain amount of elevation. There's all these things built in. You have to take classes, you have to practice. I remember hanging from a fake harness in a barn, looking up at my, whatever parachute shows up. An instructor holds a picture above my head and says, "This is what you see when you open your chute." And oh, that's not good. All right, what are the safety? What's the pattern I need to follow? Right, left, right. Okay, and so it is very safe. And when I think back to all of the different things and companies that I started, none of them were that movie Hallmark TNT type jump, Indiana Jones jumping over the chasm type. They were all smart risks. Some of them were while I was in college, right? I had the ability, I was insulated and I did okay in my classes, but I did great in the learnings around. I had a play publishing company and I had the insulation of doing that while working at another job and realizing I really don't want to read 300 shitty plays all at the same, all just to turn out one play. And so, but I was safe. I didn't, mortgage my house or sell my car just to do that thing just yet because, and I'm glad I didn't because that didn't work. So there are many things that didn't work along the way that paved the way for, oh, now this is working. And when I even think of my last company, Cheshire Impact, that really took off, I'd say that was my first real success in the corporate world. I actually, it was like it was a side hustle. It was a passion project. And I didn't even seek out customers, and oftentimes, we think, oh, we have to just seek these people out or take the risk and now sell it. But I actually, I just love this. It was a tool called Pardot. RIP. Salesforce renamed it to whatever they renamed it to that we'll never remember. Um, Terrible branding on them. But anyways, uh, Pardot was a great tool. I loved it, and I just loved working with it, and it gave me great results, and so I was just happy to tell people about it, and I would be a reference for that software company, and, hey, and they loved having references, and I would just talk to people every week, 3 or 4 people a week, not like the call me once a quarter and I was like, "Put me in, coach. I'll school these people up. You gotta get this tool," and I started understanding the objections they would have, and, "No, no, 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 don't worry about that. I did this," and then eventually people, not only would they buy the software, but they started saying, "Hey, great story. Could you help me with that too?" You know, and I hadn't really thought of that. I just thought this is a cool tool and I like helping out Pardot because they're good guys and gals and I just want to let people know about the software. But the idea of, oh, could I help you with that? Yeah, I think I could. And that just developed over the course of many years and turns into decades of just helping people with that tool and help them get their actual results. And so it was actually got to the point where we played around, we had contractors and we're doing these things, but eventually we had that Jerry Maguire goldfish moment where we were made a preferred implementation partner of Salesforce. And there were a few other ones, and honestly, they were lame. And they didn't even want to play in that space. They're like, give us the big projects. We don't like this Pardot stuff. And so we were going to be the partner du jour. Every time they'd sell an account, they could send it to us if they wanted to, and they wanted to because we'd spent years being references for them. And so it was just it was like, uh-oh, they're gonna make us this partner. We could get, 12 projects tomorrow. We could get 24 the next month. And that's what ended up happening. So I ended up having to reach out to some of the team who had just been playing around with me for fun as a contractor, say, hey, guys, this is the time. And even initially, I wasn't the first employee of my company. I was still working this other position and I had, people working. Finally, we started chasing the same revenue numbers as my full-time job. It's like, okay, this is time to go. So that wasn't some reckless, let me, bet my family's survival on this. This was like a slow measured thing based on passion. And then, leapt when it was the responsible time.
Yeah, that is a great story. And, you and I have talked off air about Cheshire Impact and getting that business off the ground. And
Yeah.
it's really cool to hear some of the detail I didn't even know. And it was a side hustle. That's the other part about mitigating risk. You didn't go all in right away, let revenue drive, you know, your decisions there and seeing if you had service market fit or product market fit.
Right.
And then at that time you did, which is really great. And that led to you doing more and different better things and being excited about that. So that's really, really cool. I want to change gears a little bit and talk about the future of your industry. What excites you about the future of marketing consulting industry?
What excites me is what also terrifies me. I'm not I'm a Marine, I don't get terrified. But what scares me is, so AI is coming, and I've got a great friend named Aaron, and he is brilliant. He is out there in the forefront. He gave us a brief the other day talking about, um, where AI is going, and there were a lot of things shared. We know and we see this coming, and he sees it even clearer than everyone else, but we see the social slop coming, right? If not already there, we see how totally fake it's getting on LinkedIn and all the social, where all of our apps are talking to each other. Our apps are posting, our apps are commenting, and we're saying, look at all these metrics, right? Look at us. We're an influencer to other bots, right? So this is coming and it's gonna only going to get worse and worse and worse. Another dear friend has actually launched a LinkedIn app that does this, and it's really good. It's really good. So and it's new. And so that's just one of their apps. And so the noise is going to be deafening. It's going to be trying to have a conversation, a tea party at a football game, right? And this is not the pace is not changing. The pace is only increasing. It's getting louder. So all of those old school techniques we're using in the marketing world to blast people in the face with this message, it's just not going to work because just like as advertisements became ubiquitous, we started blocking them out. We don't even see them anymore unless they're a customer or a client. And then we go, that's cool. But typically we're blocking out these ads. The same thing will be happening with this noise, and social is going to be getting tighter and tighter. It's going the opposite direction. And it's all about the micro now because all these other areas are getting completely flooded. It's all about the micro communities. It's all about individuals you can trust. AI agents are going to take the world by storm in a really helpful way. But prior to that, people are going to just make it so noisy. So that part's crazy. But what I also see is the flip of that, which is this kind of thing you and I are doing, this one to one communication or just a one to few communication is going to become priceless for you and for me. So for for customer and for company, for everyone, and so it's all about connection. That's what I'm stoked about is the idea of connection, because it's not about, the brand messaging anymore and what can I get in front of your face 7 times. It's gonna turn into 70 times. Oh, yeah, your people will understand it after they see your thing 70. We don't have time for 70 times. What we do have time for are these one-to-one conversations. So I'm pushing all the chips on connection and 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 connection as both podcast and community, the micro community. So the big ones, hard to find anything anymore. LinkedIn is walking itself off a cliff and allowing everyone to spam it. And lunch is going to be eaten by all these smaller communities. I just the other day had a great conversation with someone who talked about a community where every Friday he joins a CMO coffee talk, and he does it religiously because he gets value. And you know what? Honestly, all those other things, all the other social things don't really matter, but he will join that thing. And that's where we're going. We're going, are you really a human? I can see you. I can talk to you. We're going to have podcasts. We're going to have communities and even the partnerships that go along with them. That's all going to be where it's at. It's connection. And honestly, what I'm excited about is it's not go to market, it's connect to market. It's all about connecting to your market in a non-transactional way. So that's what I'm excited about. And I feel like all the technology is pushing us closer and closer to that. And I think, the worry is, oh, is it scalable? It is. It almost doesn't even matter because it will be because the other stuff is just not going to work anymore. And slowly it's getting worse and worse.
If you love the insights on this show, you'll love the insights I share in my book, written for entrepreneurs like you who are building with your exit in mind. Take the next step in your business journey to make your business more scalable and valuable. Head on over to btsherpa.com/book to grab your free digital copy of the Business Transition Handbook. Or you can also click the link in the show notes, btsherpa.com/book. Yeah, wow. Scary future, right? When we can't even trust a bot to either represent us or
Totally.
create the connections that we want.
I'm not even here right now. This is my bot. This is my agent doing
Well, I was just
interviews.
thinking as you're chatting, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if the future AI avatar you and the future AI avatar me could do a show together. That would be kind of crazy. I bet you they could.
I bet you they could.
I bet you they could. And that would be we would lose something, wouldn't we? We would lose the authenticity, first off. We would lose the creativity that maybe could come, but I don't know. Maybe they'd be a better show host than me. I got to talk to my future avatar about that.
Just like that Inception movie where they spin a little object and they go, "Okay, this is the reality." we would have to have like a proof of life, like prove you're not a bot. And you would say something silly, and I would say skibbity makes my kids cringe, right? And then you're like, that's ridiculous. And so no learning language model is going to randomly come up with that.
Yeah. We all need like secret code words to prove that we're human and
Yes.
you're in the real zone. My daughter laughs at me now because she's like, "Mom, you're a boomer," which by the way, I'm not. I'm a Gen Xer. She's like, "Mom, you're a boomer. You don't know that these images on Facebook or these images are AI generated." I'm looking at them like, "Damn, those are good."
Those are good.
I mean, you see them a lot on the travel, like, "This is the best place to stay no one knows about." And then you look at it, you're like, "Wait a minute. That's not real."
Yeah. Well, I guess if whenever I see myself in HD, I go, ooh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's why HD was invented. And I guess that's the proof of life for me. I go, okay, it must be real then. Because even Zoom has things where you can slide do a little slider. Have you seen this on Zoom? There's a slider that says touch up my appearance.
No.
Yeah, you go on Zoom video features, you can touch up your appearance and make it look
Nice. Oh, so it makes me younger, is that what's
you
happening?
yes, you can gain at least 10 years using that.
Ooh, how about 10 pounds? Gonna lose 10
Oh,
pounds?
you know what? That's they should put that out, and I
They
think
should
that
put that out because cameras make you look a little heavier, obviously this is HD, but no, that's cool, and Casey, we could probably do a whole show just on what's cool and what's scary about the future AI and
oh,
and
totally.
certainly in the marketing industry, sales, I mean, we see it touching so many parts of business operations, and when you're in the industry of marketing, you can't help but think about it. So I want to encourage anyone listening to be thinking about it for their business. And we don't have all the answers, but the answer is somewhere out there, and that you can't ignore it.
What I'm hearing is 5 years. So we have 5 magical years. After that, things get weird, and then it in, like, way more than when America Online went to unlimited usage, right? This is, like, crazy, and it'll be weird, and if you're in accounting, I'm sorry, you've been replaced, like, all these different things are gonna happen, but at least the next 5 years, we have that golden hour of AI just helping us get more efficient and effective.
Yeah, 5 years. Okay, clock is ticking, and it's already weird, so it's going to get weirder.
Oh,
Let's
super weird.
say. Casey, I've learned so much, from you so far in the show. I really appreciate you and all the things you've shared. I want to learn a little bit more about you, particularly one thing in your origin story I did not know that you mentioned kind of off the cuff is that you were a Marine.
Yes. Mhm.
How did you get into the Marines and how did that dovetail with your background in computer science and communications and being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I started out, I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Air Force, and I always kind of assumed I'd do something like that. But when's the right time? Who knows? And so, wouldn't you know, it was actually marketing that got me. They got me those recruiters, and so this was after college, and I had some conversations with the Army, with the Navy, the Air Force, all the different people, but not the Marine Corps because they're crazy, right? So I never talked to them whatsoever. But then I saw this little update saying free helicopter ride at St. A's College up the street. I thought, damn, that sounds cool. I want a free helicopter ride. All right, let's go. So I went up to St. A's and this beautiful green quad with rolling hills, one summer day. And I just remember walking out there. Everything's fine, birds chirping. I don't remember the birds, but then this giant Black Hawk helicopter comes out of the sky, lands right in the middle of the quad, and then the door opens. Crew chief pops out and he's like, "Hey, kid, let's go!" Right? And you're like, "Me?" You're like, "Is there a line here?" Okay. And then I go to get in the back, and they go, "No, get in the front." And I was like, "Okay." Let's go. So you get in the front, you put on the cool helicopter helmet, pilot helmet, and remember the pilot was this absolute badass, and she was like, "Hey, what's up, kid?" And I'm like, "Hi." She's like, "Where do you want to go?" I'm like, "I don't know." So this helicopter tour all around Manchester or wherever the hell we were in New Hampshire, and I don't recall landing, but must have. And great experience, right? Well, it was the Marine Corps. Good for you guys. That was a great lead magnet, right? And then afterward, I remember getting a call from the Marines, and hey, come have a chat. And you know what? It's funny, the parallels to marketing that I haven't really thought of. I wouldn't normally go have a chat with a Marine recruiter because that sounds scary, but felt you kinda owe them a little bit because you just did this badass helicopter ride, so, okay, let me go meet, see what's up. I've talked to other folks, and you know what they said? They said, "We don't want you." They said they said actually, there's more to that. They said, "We're not gonna give you all that money the Army was talking about. We're not gonna let you choose like what the Air Force was saying. Um, don't worry about the Navy." And they're like, "But we don't want you." So, it was this fascinating technique of just like, but also just reality of, yeah, none of the bonuses that attract other people are in play here, and we actually don't think you have what it takes. So it struck a chord, and, that I always love that challenge, and so it struck a chord. That summer, cue the Rocky music, and I was just running my butt off, and eventually I came back and they go, "Huh, okay, let's go." And I joined the Marines, and it was a crazy, crazy experience, but some of the best experiences, of my life and just the most amazing, times, challenging times too, but just really, like, personally rewarding.
Wow, that is a great marketing story for
Yeah.
sure. Turning you away so that you wanted it even more, worked hard for it, and then you got it. And yeah, what a lead magnet, right? To fly around in a Black Hawk helicopter.
It is.
You probably felt like the shit that day.
Yeah, it's surreal. You're like, "What?" You know?
That's crazy.
Also in the front too, the view is just unbelievable.
Oh man, how many years did you serve, Casey?
It was about 8.
That's a long time. And then when you got out, is that when you went to college, or did you go to college before that?
I had gone to college beforehand. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then at what juncture did you say, "Hey, I'm leaving this corporate America thing and I'm gonna go do my thing"?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's and this is where it gets into why, if I'm proved wrong and there is an entrepreneur gene, uh yeah, the hard part is just discovering that you have it, right? Discovering that you have this illness. And so in the military, had a chance to deploy, had a chance to do a bunch of things. But one of the things that became clear was, as badass as it is, the military really needs like high detail, high process, like just follow the process people, right? For the most part. And at least in the area that I was in and whatnot. So that's not me, right? I am, let's get to the bottom line, low detail and middle detail, and very much break the process in order to make it better, or just to break it. So, so break process guy doesn't necessarily. So I realize, okay, this is not going to be a lifelong thing. I'm not going to retire in the military, that kind of thing. Would never trade any of that for sure. And the cool thing is, unlike the other branches, you can always say you're a Marine after that, which is hella branding, right? If I ever saw an example. That is it. Um, so in the corporate world, the same sort of thing showed up, at least in the early years of, we kind of need you to just put your head down and, follow the process and do all the data, right? Hence that TPS report, that FLS report. And not every company is ready for someone to come in and break their FLS report or fulfill it in 10 minutes with a macro. So there was a lot of, it was almost harder to be in that zone where you're trying your best, and you start to realize I'm much more of a consultant than I am a long-term employee. Because I would come into companies, I would fix things, I'd break things, I'd make it so much better, but eventually they're kind of tired of me, and there's nothing else for me to break and fix, and so I probably should just evolve somewhere else, right? And so I almost became like a consultant as a W-4, right? Um, and just moving from company to company, but always growing and growing responsibility and climbing that ladder and negotiating for that next position. Um, but yeah, so in trying other things, I remember mocking up. I invented Uber for sure. With a friend of mine, we were sitting there in the early days and like, "Hey, we should make an app that calls a cab." Yeah, we should do that. We got hung up? We got hung up on what to call it. We we're like, "What do you call it?" "I don't know." And then we stopped. Uh,
And then Uber came along and you're like, "Darn, I missed that window."
if we knew that bar was that low, we would have kept going.
Yeah.
But no, we were constantly trying to, I was trying to, invent new things, nonprofits, um, all sorts of different adventures to try new things, the play publishing company. And so really the breakout moment was when I discovered Pardot and realized this tool is great, like actually great, not like you bought it and then you regret it afterward. It was just actually great. And so, yeah, that whole experience that I shared with you about, you know, breaking free from a full-time job to do my own was the first time it really, dawned on me that it didn't really make any sense either. I was just sort of going with it. It wasn't like there was a master plan around it. It was more of just responding to the environment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. You're doing a lot of reflections on the show, which I appreciate. It's kind of fun to hear you,
Going deep.
wax philosophical about your background. So this question is about doing that in a specific time. If there was a specific time you could go back to that moment and give yourself some entrepreneurial advice, what would it be?
Yeah. You always wonder about changing the future because I think the lessons I learned, maybe this is the preamble to that question, which is, I think a lot of those lessons, even painful ones, were worth it. But I would probably go back in time and talk to myself, maybe in college, because even school, right, was designed for the other type, right? And so, but I was running the theater company for the school, and that was me being an entrepreneur, like running that, growing it, ticket sale, like all the things. I would go back to me right around then, and just say like, hey, there's this thing over here, there is a world over here of all those things you were doing. Yes, that is a thing, and go for it. And so I probably would have encouraged myself to, especially while the the run rate's low, you don't have a family, you don't have all these responsibilities, maybe you're still in school, is to push even harder on that. Maybe get an even lower grade in film studies because shout out to, my professor there who I only remember one concept from, and she didn't like me, but, and I worried too much about that class. But in the end, I should have pushed on some of those other companies, even more. Maybe I would have, skipped some of the worker phase, but sometimes you have to experience things. I will say I've worked at some really terrible companies, not all of them. So if you go stalk my LinkedIn, not all of the ones you see, but some and many. And I learned from that. So when it came time to launch my own companies, a lot of it was just based on I don't want to have people on my team experience what I experienced, right? I want them to have the opposite. I want them to go to the best company they've ever been to. And sometimes instead of trying to find where that is, you just create it for yourself.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I love that. We often, as entrepreneurs, get very much in the here and now, and we do what we do to serve our clients and serve our stakeholders, our employees, etc. And sometimes we're really clear on our purpose, and sometimes we're not. So that's why I've included this question, which is, what's your purpose inside the business, and is that different or similar to your purpose outside the business?
Yeah. It's a really, by the way, this is a really fun show to be on. I've enjoyed listening to it, but I would say it's a really fun show to be a part of. Because I think we don't often do this enough as entrepreneurs is just pause, do a little self-reflection, and we have the polished answers, but sometimes it's fun to explore topics, um, and maybe uncover a new thing about how great the marketing is in the Marine Corps. Like, who would have thought?
Blackhawk, it's forever an example.
Yeah, seriously. But when it comes to purpose, yeah, this has been something that has been challenging me for me sometimes because if you don't have if you're not working in the Peace Corps and you don't have, you're not working in a nonprofit, then sometimes it can be challenging to say, well, what am I doing? Why am I here? Why are we here? And you just sort of need to, but keep pushing on that, like a muscle. And hey, maybe it's pull-ups. Pull-ups are terrible. But you have to just keep doing it. Just keep doing that exercise until you figure it out, until you get that muscle grown. But yeah, for purpose, I've gotten really, really clear on it lately, and it's all about connecting people. So our purpose at Ringmaster is to create human connection for the purpose of defeating, finally, for the first and last time, disconnected marketing. Right. So how many decades did I spend in marketing where I saw my customer as a one and a zero or a 13 or a 3,000? Um, and what I mentioned earlier about AI, it gets worse if not only is that slop out there and you can't tell who's who, but also you have no idea who your customer is because you don't really connect to them. You just and when you don't, and I'm guilty of this for sure. Like you don't connect to them, and so all of your biases are theirs, whether they are or not. And so all of your decisions, all of your marketing, all of your sales, all of your everything is based on what you think would be good for them, not what might actually be good for them. And if you don't talk to them, how are you ever going to know? So I'm on the warpath. I have an enemy. It's disconnected marketing. It's really the cause for most poor marketing out there. People don't even realize it because they're investing in. And by the way, the more tech stack you have, the more at risk you are for this because it just separates you further and further, like layers in a cake, away from the person you're supposed to be helping. So that's really my purpose is that connection. So inside Ringmaster, that's what it is. Outside Ringmaster, I think it still comes back to what seems to be a unique ability for me is just understanding connection and thinking about it and valuing it. And so it's really right now is valuing my immediate connections, my family, and just understanding the 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 timeliness of the people around me right now. And just, my kids, they're growing up, middle school already. Where did cute little third grade go? Right. So in my personal life, it's valuing those people around me, my CEO brothers and sisters, the different people in my little groups, my small groups, and just valuing them and doing what I can to help and give value to them, and also allow them to teach me things, right? But it all is about connection, and so they just took a little risk to embrace that, but it feels really good doing it.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Casey, this has been so fun. I've gotten to know you better. I thought I already knew you pretty well, but I've gotten to know you even better. This is a case in point of the power of podcast conversations that are authentic, meaningful, and you've shared so much. I want to give people an opportunity to connect with you. What's a great way for them to do that?
Absolutely. So ringmaster.com, Ringmaster, just the word .com. That's crazy. How do you get that? Long story. But ringmaster.com, you can see all the different shows we've launched. If you're curious, anyone listening to this and you kind of want to connect with, maybe the idea of, founder-led growth appeals to you and you want to, take the reins, shoot me an email, casey@ringmaster.com. Shoot me an email and I'm just happy to give you all the lessons learned, what to do on your podcast. By the way, you are a fantastic podcaster. So no, I have no feedback. This was so when you were like, "Hey, where do I connect with you?" I'm like, "Wait, the show's over? Where's time gone?"
Time goes, it goes. Yeah, no, hey, thanks. I will take that as a high compliment. You've been on a lot of shows and you've probably seen some really great stellar hosts and some others that aren't so great, but I really appreciate you, Casey, coming on the show. I appreciate our listeners. Thank you so much for listening. If you've learned something, if you've taken some notes, why not share it with a friend and why not follow the show? We really appreciate it. And if you like what you're hearing, leave us a comment, rating, and review. Super helps us spread the word far and wide about the show. We really appreciate you, our listeners. This has been another exciting episode of the Entrepreneur Gene, and we'll see you next time. Hey, that's a wrap. This show is sponsored by the Business Transition Sherpa, working with entrepreneurs who want to escape feeling like a prisoner in their own business and to eventually let go flawlessly. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to help support the Entrepreneur Gene, I'd encourage you to leave a rating and review. Ratings and reviews truly help our show grow and get in front of more entrepreneurs just like you. If you do leave a rating and review, we'll be so happy. Take a screenshot of it, send it to my email, Laurie@btsherpa.com, and we'll send you a free digital copy of my book, The Business Transition Handbook. And we'll also enter you to win one of our monthly swag boxes. For show notes, including links to everything in today's episode, be sure to visit btsherpa.com. Also, as a reminder, you can watch this full video interview on our YouTube channel for the Business Transition Sherpa. While you're there, be sure to check out videos from our award-winning podcast called Succession Stories. We'll see you next time on The Entrepreneur Gene.